This video is going to explain about indexer usage on wire EDM machines and specifically the Sodick Indexers. They're both stainless steel submersible indexers, and we sell two sizes. There is the WS4 on our left and the WS5 on our right. The main difference between these two is obviously the size. You have the 4-inch faceplate on the smaller unit versus the 6-inch faceplate on the WS5. The weight capacity of the two units is also a big difference. In horizontal use, like it's mounted here on the table with the workpiece horizontal, the WS4 is rated at 11 pounds, no tailstock, and the WS5 is rated at 44 pounds with no tailstock. So generally the WS4 is very good for small parts, and the WS5 obviously for heavier parts, bigger, heavier parts, which I have a display of some sample pieces here. So the WS4, the center line from the indexer to the table is a 2-inch height. So smaller parts, that means you can keep the wire guides close to the workpiece when you have a small part. The WS5, now that's going to have at least a 3-inch space from the faceplate to the table. There's a little spacer adapter plate I have it mounted on right now. So when you're doing small parts, let's say this small pin, when you do small parts, it would be best to use the smaller unit because you can have your wire guides closer. Maybe this part's a little easier to see. You can have your wire guides closer top and bottom to the cut versus the bigger unit with a small part. You have your wire guides fairly distanced. That's going to affect some of the accuracy. So that's why you'd want to buy the smaller unit versus always just buying the bigger unit. You can get a little bit better space closer with your guides on the smaller unit. Here we have two examples of rotary index cutting. The left sample is indexing the part, and the right sample, these are rather small, the right one is spinning. So in other words, the wire or the indexer the part is free spinning while we are cutting the shape with the wire. So we're using the wire a little bit like a lathe application. The WS4 5 unit do not do the application on the right. They do the application on the left where you can index the part. I'll show you a couple other samples next. So wire EDM cutting with an indexer, there are 3 styles of cutting. There's number 1, indexing, which is the most common. This is a sample I have in my hand here as an indexing example. So the part was cut in this plane and then turned 90 degrees and cut in the second plane after it's turned. So you can see I have these samples here. Now this can be accomplished, this turn, because it's a 90-degree turn, can be accomplished automatically using the submersible indexer, either the WS4 WS5, and that can be attached to a standard machine without any kind of option. We can do this style turn. This can be a 90-degree turn or really any angle. It doesn't have to be 90, it can be any angle you want. As opposed to, there's other kinds of cutting. There's 2 other styles of cutting on the wire machine with indexers. There would be the spinning sample, which I had before. It's a very small piece. This is just a round piece, so we turned it down like a lathe operation, turned it down to a a different diameter with this taper on it. That's a whole different unit to be able to cut. Not the WS4 WS5, they cannot do this. This is a free spinning, so it's just spinning while you're wire cutting it. And then there is the simultaneous turning while it's cutting, which is this sample here. There's a control upgrade on the machine, and this can be done with the WS4 WS5 with the control upgrade. Now you can do simultaneous cutting with X and Y axis cutting and the rotation cutting at the same time. So there's 3 styles of cutting using these indexers, of which WS4 can do is an indexer only by standard control or simultaneous rotation with a control upgrade. That would be on the LN machines, that would be your SPWE control upgrade. And on the VL series, that would be your LN20 control upgrade. What we're seeing here is the LN20 control. So this is the upgraded control on the VL series wire machine. You can tell if you have this option, it says LN20 at the top of the control panel, obviously. You can see that. But what is new here is you have a W axis, which is green, and a UU and a VV display, because it's actually an 8-axis control upgrade. We're only adding one more, but you could use a tilt axis also with the rotary with this control upgrade. So when you have the LN20, that gives you your simultaneous cutting with the W axis, and the UU and VV are displayed also, even though I don't have a tilt axis. So we're going to show you the setup on the machine is going to be the WS5. I've got it just kind of partially mounted here on the table with the Hirschman chuck, and I'll put this simultaneous part on the part, because on this machine I have, like I said, the control upgrade. I can do the simultaneous display with that sample mounted. Here we see the WS5 indexer mounted onto the VL machine, which has the LN20 control upgrade. So we're going to display a simultaneous motion with the W axis and the X axis to cut this, to simulate cutting this part. So with the LN20 control, you can cut while it's turning in the X and Y axis, simultaneous X and Y cutting with the rotation. And you have taper capability too, while the U and V are also able to be used. This display is just straight wire, so there's no taper while it's turning. But you can taper the part while it's turning. The standard control is an indexer, same unit, WS4 WS5 unit, and with the standard LN2W control, it can be installed as an indexer, which would be this sample. You can cut one direction, turn it whatever angle necessary to make the second cut. So it's not simultaneous, it's turn, then burn, versus turn, burn, simultaneous with this sample here. So those are the 2 styles of cutting, wire cutting with rotary tables. And then the third cutting would be free spinning, which was the smaller pin sample I showed earlier. The workpiece is just spinning and the machine is cutting across with the wire. Similar application as cutting like on a lathe cutting, I would compare it to, be like similar to lathe cutting. So those are your three styles of cutting, and the WS4 WS5 Sodick Indexers. Now on our machines we can also interface other brand indexers. It doesn't necessarily have to always be the Sodick brand. We interface with the Hirschman units quite often. So that's a common one also. Hirschman makes a unit that has all three forms of cutting integrated in that axis. You can cut with it as an indexer, simultaneous, and free spinning at an RPM. So the main thing is the WS4 WS5 unit do not spin at an RPM. Here's the smaller WS4 unit again, just to give you a shot of that. They spin at about 1 to 2 RPM, so that's not fast enough for actual cutting. You want a unit that can spin around 1,000 RPM.